April. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Midweek Live. Middle of the week, middle of the day. So glad that you've joined us. My name is Kim, and I have Taylor here with me. Yes. Some of you may recognize her if you joined us for the gathering at the end of February. Taylor shared a little bit of her story. And funny thing is I was really looking to find someone that could talk to the emotion of fear, knowing we were going into this All the Feels series and knowing fear is common, but not all people want to talk about it.
No, it's a very taboo topic that kind of is just like, oh, everyone has fear, but it's can become way more serious.
Yeah. And
others.
When you share, it was like, I was listening to you. I've had fear. I can't really interview myself though. So, doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But hearing you share and just hearing the things you were sharing about and the age that you are, I think all of those things are so important because I think, so a person your age doesn't usually want to mention this.
Yeah.
You were probably really similar in age when I had my first panic attack and we'll talk about that too. But thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
I know that there's probably even fears in putting it all out there like this.
Normal anxiety, nothing severe.
There you go. So you grew up in the church. Most people will know that.
Yeah.
You said at age 16 that you found yourself struggling with different emotions. I don't know if it was specifically fear at that time. What kind of emotions, where do you think that came from? Where do you think those started?
Yeah, so I would say looking back now on the outside, fear to somewhat of a more severe degree has always been apparent in my life, but, anxiety wasn't really a thing talked about. It's becoming more, discussed, but it was not at all. And so it really started to become debilitating when I was in high school. And I would say my freshman year was really when I started to get more anxious, and it all kind of revolved around school at first, just being at school and the unknowns and the teacher being in control and just being in a classroom. And so it started out like that. And then it got more severe as time went on as well. So
so you noticed hints of it as a freshman. And did it feel controllable? It was this controllable thing, you could kind of talk yourself away from getting too far down that road.
Yeah, it started where it was, I could handle it somewhat, probably not in the best way, but it got to a point quickly where I needed to go to a counselor. So I started counseling my freshman year of high school.
So apparently at one point you told your parents. Did you tell them right away? Did they kind of know the whole time, or did you finally just share it with them?
Okay, so it became it started I felt like I needed to throw up. But it wasn't I was actually going to, but it was so anxious to that point where my body was having those responses.
Yeah.
And so it started, when I started sharing it with my parents, it was more so I don't know if I'm always sick. My body feels weird in some classes. And then, from their own knowledge, they kind of knew, maybe anxiety. And then I needed some more assistance in that.
Yeah. But counseling's good. It sounds and see, in a lot of worlds, in a lot of families, I think counseling is looked at as a really negative experience or something you should be ashamed of.
Yeah.
And I love that is not the case. It wasn't the case in my world, and it sounds like it wasn't the case in your world either, to just be okay, well, let's just try counseling. And did you find that counseling was helpful?
Yeah. I think it's normal to go through a few counselors until you find someone that's a good fit. And it's okay to, be it's not great for me, but move on to someone because it's for your own mental health. And I think it's important that you feel comfortable sharing. But counseling is super taboo to talk about. And oftentimes people feel ashamed or feel it's for the weak. And I think it's important, and it's becoming more normalized, which is a great thing that it's not, and it's so helpful to have this outlet with a professional that can give you guidance.
If it makes you feel like there's something wrong with you. I'm so messed up, I got to have somebody else listen to all my issues.
And it's not like that at all. I've even said when I'm doing great now far as my anxiety, but I'm I would love to go to counseling just to talk about everything on my plate. We go through so much, and just to have that professional insight and just a listening ear, that's really what they're there for.
Absolutely.
And to just know it's all confidential. They can't share with anyone.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of me seeing a counselor in my life when I go to the store, it's not. Yeah. It just feels comforting.
Yeah. Did you ever experience a panic attack?
Oh, yeah. I could, my first one.
I was going to ask you about your first
yeah,
one.
I was at the gas station with my mom, and we weren't in a great area of town, and I knew that my mom was filling up, like, the thing was in the car, and I knew if something happens, like, it's going to be a process to get out of here.
You can't get
I can't get out fast enough. And so it was like, Mom, I need to go home. I need to go home. And I think the thing that I struggled with most, like with my family and all this, is it comes across as demanding and controlling when you're really in that intense feeling, because it's so real in the moment.
Yeah.
Even if the fears are unreasonable or unlikely, you feel like you need to get out now.
Right.
And so my mom at the time, she's learned so much more about anxiety through me and everything, but it was like, no, you don't run the show, like, I'm going to fill up gas and you can wait, and then we're almost home. Yeah. But it was like that intense, like, I need to get out of here now.
Yeah. No, I can completely relate. The very first one I ever had, I thought I was having a heart attack. And I was like crawling on the floor of my house because I was like, I don't know what is like, I think I'm dying right now. I think I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah. And it comes in all different forms, but like your body even reacts. Like, I used to say, the day after my panic attack, my legs were just achy, like trying to escape because they were so tense, and I would be all clammy, and like your whole body reacts, and that's how you know it's a real thing. Like your whole body responds to it.
And then one of the things, and they may have talked to you about this in counseling, but one of the things I learned is how much, it's almost like there's the whole like fight, flight, or
fight or flight.
Flight, or freeze. Yeah. And it was like, basically, our bodies are responding as if a bear is attacking us, and our instinct. And even though that's not taking place, all of our human responses are like that. Yeah. We want to run, or we want to fight, or we want to like not move, and your heart's racing, and you're sweating, and all of these things, and it's just so very real.
So real.
So was there like a point in counseling that you feel like you started to take ground in a positive light? Like when did things Did things improve right away? Did it take a long time?
In the grand scheme of things, I'm thankful for how short it really was, but it was long. Like, it felt even longer than it actually was. Yeah. And it got to the point, counselor after counselor, like different, I went to somewhere for my brain, actually 2 different places, medication, I went to a natural doctor. I was trying everything. Yeah. And it really came down to my own thoughts and taking those captive. And of course, all those other things helped too. Yeah. And were important. But it was at least a year of panic attacks and isolating before it gradually got better. It wasn't like, bang, medicine, feel better.
Right. So did you ever have a panic attack at school?
Not a severe panic attack, and I think that was largely due, I had anxiety constantly. Like, I was always on edge. Yes. But I think a large part of that was due to my parents would come get me a lot. Like, if I was, they would make me at first keep pushing through, but when they realize I need this extra help, like, this is a big deal in my head. I'm really scared. It's might not make sense why, but I am, and so I would leave school a lot, and then that led to my testimony.
I was just going to say that you share in your testimony that your junior year, as a junior year, you completely leave school and you go to homeschooling. Yeah. Was that your decision? Was that parents like talking and saying maybe this is the right choice, or?
I was really pushing for it, and they were, I think, hesitant because they didn't want me to miss out on the experience of high school and never go back.
Absolutely.
So I made it through my first 3 years of high school. Well, 2.5. So I left after my first semester of my junior year.
Okay.
And so, although that was felt like a great decision at the time, I think that was honestly one of the biggest things that made my anxiety worse because I gave in to the point where now I was like paralyzed, and like I gave in once, and it was like I'm never going to step out of that again, and then I just sheltered in place instead of fighting
before everybody did it. You did it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was sheltering in place for what felt like forever, but I wouldn't leave my home. Yeah. And so that was the first point where it was like I gave in. And I wasn't pushing myself anymore in these experiences, which are awful. It feels horrible to have to push yourself to do those things because you're like stepping into anxious feelings. Yeah. But that was important for me to overcome it.
Yeah. So what kind of mentality, I mean, I want you to kind of dig in a little bit here because I feel like these are like the so relatable places. Like you're home alone, you're doing school online or whatever that looks like at the time. What is your brain telling you about reality? Like, how are you living in fear just being in the house by yourself? Like, are there, I mean, clearly when we're in this state, we cannot make out what is actually like real fear, really worth fearing, or the thought of something happening. Really, that's like the differences, right?
Yeah, I would say my home was my safe place. And so that's where I really was at peace, was just I knew I'm free from anything at my house. This is my property, like my place, you know?
Yeah.
I felt most safe there. But I think it's important to mention, like, most of my fear revolved around being trapped and not in control of my situation.
Yeah.
So whether it was being stuck in traffic or stuck at a train, 5 o'clock traffic, and not being able to get out if something were to happen, lockdowns at school. We had a lot at Central. And so that was really anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
And so being at home, you would think I would feel more stuck.
Yeah.
But I felt great at the moment, but I was not stepping into my normal routine, my normal habits, leaving. So it was still being stuck, but comfortable.
Yeah, you were choosing the stuck.
I was choosing that.
I'm hearing the control part of it, right? It was like these areas I couldn't control, but this is a controlled environment where I can. How did friends know? Did like certain friends know? Did you lose friends during this time?
Yeah. I would say I never was one to have a huge group of friends. I had multiple close relationships.
Yeah.
Shout out Emma, Lauren. But they knew the severity of it. And although, I mean, haven't really talked to them about their perspective in it all, but they gave me my space, but at the same time would still invite me places and knew I wouldn't go, but they would come to me, which was important because I wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
So I'm sure it was hard for even others to realize, like, it's nothing against you. This is a me thing. You can come to me. You could come to my, bubble, but I'm not leaving there. But they did great at, coming to me.
Do you think it was important for you to continue to be pursued by them? In other words, it sounds like they knew you were going to say no when you were being invited somewhere, but they didn't stop asking. Was that important, do you think, that you didn't feel forgotten by your friends, that they still kept asking even though you would say no?
I think it was super important because you want to still go to those things. My, extrovert personality craved that interaction.
Yeah.
And although I said no, it was just the thought, and like I felt like I would always be a burden. Like, what if I had an anxiety attack in front of them or panic attack and had to go home? I didn't want them to always invite me somewhere and be like, oh, is Taylor going to leave again?
Right.
Is she going to ruin this time?
Right. Even though none of your friends actually ever said those words, right? I think it's so
but
important.
It's stuck in your own head. It's a constant brain battle. Your mental state is like so powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really helpful just to know that they were there. And you know what? I would probably go MIA so many times, just not responding. But my parents even knew how important it was. And they invited my friends over. And I was so mad at the time. Like, I just want to be alone. I just want to isolate. But I remember Emma and her family, my parents invited them over for dinner because I wouldn't go over to her house. And I was so mad at the time because I was like embarrassed. But those were the things that were so important. Now looking back was like having that community still.
Yeah. What was social media like for you at the time? Did you kind of refrain from it or really dig into it? Like, did it play a role at all in your life during that time?
Yeah, I remember when I would look back at my last post and I was like, I haven't posted since then because I haven't been doing anything since then. And it was like so hard to see like, that was the last moment that was like normal in my life before I really gave in. So it was hard to see that. I was probably consumed too much with other people's social media and seeing them all still live their life and not be affected by anxiety and mental health. And I was like, I think it was more of just made me more sad because I was like, I wish I could do those things still.
Yeah. So you grew up in the church. Do you, how did what was your relationship like with the Lord at the time? Were you frustrated, angry with him, like that this would happen? How did you feel about his role in your life and where you had found yourself?
I think that I was really I pulled back from anything that I would have normally been involved in. So even if it was like watching the occasional YouTube sermon or anything, going to church was anxiety. I pulled back from every aspect. Not necessarily because I was mad at God, but I was just pulled from everything.
Fear was way more at the forefront of your brain than the Lord was.
Yes, for sure. But with the people in my life were constantly like, you can watch church online still, you know, you can do it in your space still. And then we'll eventually take those steps and, push yourself, but you need to still incorporate that. And I have, my parents and Christy and everyone were like, you need to really dig in right now because he's the only one, with the help of counseling and everything, the only one that's going to help you realize that you can overcome this.
Yeah. Yeah. What were the steps that you had to take? Were they intentional? Did you have to really push through? Everything in your instinct really sounds like, I just want to be in my room by myself. I just want to kind of want everybody to leave me alone and let me just take this at my own pace. You don't know how scared I am. You don't know my world. You don't know my reality. Yeah. So what were those baby steps of allowing the Lord back into your life in more of a prominent way? It's not like you shut the door on him, just that he would become more a part of your everyday.
Yeah. I wish that there was a moment or something that was, I could, tell you right now was just like, bang, this is what really helped me. But honestly, it was my own breaking point mentally. And I was like, I'm so tired of believing these lies, and had to search for myself. And I would watch all of these videos on Right Now Media. I'd be like anxiety, whatever.
Yeah.
And be like, people see that people experienced it too, which was so important. And then I just had to come to the point where I was like, it doesn't matter what other people think of me. Because at the end of the day, my anxiety turned into having anxiety about having anxiety.
Yeah.
Which sounds so wordy, but it's really just was the fear of having that panic attack in front of people. That's why I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
Because what if that happened?
Yeah.
And so I was caring so much what other people thought of me and how it would impact everyone. And I had to come to that point God made me this way, and it really only matters. I had to stop caring so much what other people thought, and really just what he thought of me.
Yeah. Do you remember kind of the first times you stepped back into the world? Do you remember what those moments felt like? I assume they weren't easy.
No. I remember one morning we were doing adoption families came on the stage at church. I don't know. Maybe some people watching it remember it.
Yeah.
And I was having a panic attack that morning. And our whole family was going up, and my family was like, well, we're going. You can come or you cannot. But I was freaking out. I wiped my tears, walked on stage, smiled up there, walked off, cried, went home. That was it. Wow. So it was little steps though, but they were hard. I would come, but I'd go to the bathroom every 5 minutes because I would get nervous. Yeah. And I need some fresh air. I need some water. Yeah. But just pushing yourself to take those steps, and then I'd felt so good afterwards.
You would. So the dust would kind of clear on some of that anxiety afterward, and you'd say, oh, that was a win. I was able to go.
Yeah, I felt proud of myself for pushing through it. And I was like, I got through it. It wasn't as bad as I had built it up to be in my own mind.
Right. So the little steps, but you had to keep doing the little steps.
You have to push yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so hard because you just want to run away from all those things that may trigger it. But that isolation is what really gets to you and what really pushes you down more and tears you down. Yeah. So it's important to just keep pushing yourself.
Did you make your way back to school before you graduated?
I did. So I took one semester off, and then I went back for my senior year.
Okay.
So that was
How did that look? Huge win. Arriving on campus that first time as your senior year, and
I had the normal amount of anxiety that comes with the first day of school.
For sure.
For those who don't know anxiety, your first day of school going, it's that all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Living in that state. Yes. 100%.
So it was exciting just because I was on the uphill. I had already gone through the valley and I was coming up. So I was really ready. But I still had you know, we still had lockdowns and we still had situations that would trigger. But were also things in place like someone at the school, if there was ever a drill for lockdowns, like they have things in place, like they can let people know on a list who that's really triggering to them. One's going to happen. But that didn't stop the real ones. So it's just something like you just have to trust God. And that's so hard. But
So what did it look like mentally? You have like a lockdown you're not notified about because it's like a real one. What do you have to? You cried.
I remember one. I cried and I called my dad and he parked right in front of my class. And then after that, I left school. But I think it's anxiety inducing to everyone.
I don't think it's comfortable at all. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the words lockdown are pretty just intense on their own, but knowing they're locking us down for a reason, you can absolutely go down that trail.
But it was like feeling trapped and knowing, what if they come to my class and I'm locked up? I wanted to run. If a lockdown were to happen, I was like, open the doors, I'll be down the street. But it was, I had to realize that everyone was feeling somewhat the same way as me. And I can really only trust that God's going to protect me because he's really the only thing, he's the only person there, you know, like everyone else is locked down too.
That's a good point. Everybody else is locked down too. It's not like they've only put you right.
Yes, and that's in your own head. You feel like it's your world, like it's all falling down on you.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not.
So where are you at now? It's been a couple years since the really, really hard parts of this struggle. How do you feel about like all of it now? I mean, I assume this is still something you're walking in.
Yeah. I tried to get off medication, but that is hard and scary too because you so fear going back to that place. I'm really proud of how far I have come, and sometimes just meeting new people and them hearing my story, they're like, wow, you went through that, and I can't even believe that my life was like that at some point. But I have normal anxiety. I feel like it's so prevalent in this world and not talked about nearly enough.
Oh, gosh, yes.
So, but it is on the rise of being talked about more. So that's helpful, and hearing other people's stories is helpful. But I'm at a good place, and I've learned so many ways to cope with it, and it's so comforting for somebody else who's having anxiety to hear someone that understands. Because unless you understand mental health, it's not a physical thing. Like, you don't break an arm and you can't see it. So it's hard for people to understand unless they experience it.
Mental health means it's here. And nobody's in here but you. You know.
And so just being able to relate to people and people who have anxiety, being like, okay, I know you will understand if an attack happens and how badly I need to get out of this situation. So that feels good to just have been through that. And being able to show hope for others.
So it sounds like it's freeing to be open about it.
I will talk to anyone about it because although it's still prevalent in my life, it probably always will be. I mean, as long as I'm on this planet, you know, God said it's going to be hard. So I know it's going to be in my life. Probably forever in some aspect. Because the world's a scary place and it triggers you sometimes. But I'm at a place where I can help others and still cope with my own. I mean, I hope it won't get to that point again. And I tell myself I won't allow it to because it was all about isolating myself and pulling back. And so I'm very hard on, okay, if I'm having it, I'll take a step out, but I'm pushing myself to finish this. Because as soon as I give in, everything else I'll give into.
It's a lot of mental battles.
It's a constant battle in your head. Like, you know that image of the angel and the devil on your shoulder? That's what it is constantly. It's like a battle in your mind.
And really just trying to remind yourself of truth. And I think it's interesting that, you know, I think of the whole, you know, the truth will set you free. Really, you learning how to be honest about how you were feeling under your skin. You know, I know for me, that's always the thought that came to mind when it would come to like panic or anxiety, is it felt like there was like a storm underneath my skin. Like nobody knew all the like anxiety I was feeling, like static across my body, and nobody knows. You're just trying so hard for it to like stay under wraps.
And I got so good at hiding when it was happening. And so nobody knew in the moment that
Right.
I was like dying inside.
Yeah.
I got so good at hiding it. And so it's important to know that you don't know what everyone's experiencing around you. Like, it's not a physical injury, like I said earlier.
Right.
So anyone around you could be having it or have had it. And even after you have it, it's like the rest of your day you feel the effects sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it's just important to know you feel it inside. You can't always see it unless I run away because I'm having panic attack.
Right. Yeah. Do you still do counseling?
I don't right now. As I said earlier, how, you have to find someone you connect with.
Yeah.
Of course, the one I connected with didn't take my insurance.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't important.
Yeah.
But, you get to a place where you're like, okay, I feel like I'm good on my own, but I would love to go back. And I keep telling myself it's a healthy thing to go to counseling.
100%.
It's just the dread of having to go through that process of finding somebody when it's not, a severe thing happening in your life to really push you to that. But I hope, like, within this year, I'm sure I'll find somebody that, whether it be even a counselor or just a mentor, like in the church, just having somebody to trust and express what's going on to.
Yeah. Do you think it would be helpful for you to share, I guess the question I want to ask is, for friends of people who are struggling with this, what would you hope for them to know about the best way to support their friend? They don't understand it. They don't struggle with the same thing. What would have been really helpful for your friends to kind of know as you were walking in this?
I think unless you feel it, unless you've experienced a mental health battle yourself, you can never fully understand, which is fine. But pushing, like, educating yourself on what it's like and that it is a real thing, because it often gets pushed under the table. Throughout history, it's like mental health's not even a thing.
Right.
So because you can't understand it because you've never experienced it, just to research it and know that it's a real thing. And also don't stop trying to reach out to those people, because from my experience, I wanted to do those things I used to. I still loved my friends. I still wanted to go shopping and those things, but I couldn't at that time. So, and not to take it personal, like, they still love you. And being mad at them for not being like they used to be or go to things they used to be, it's just as hard on them, and you being mad at them would make it 10 times harder because they want that still.
Yeah.
So it's all about empathy, really, and just you've never experienced it and you never will fully understand, but you can try and you can just be present still.
Yeah. Have a lot of grace for them as they are experiencing it, and not stop reaching out and encouraging. Yeah. Any words you would say to yourself looking back? Let's say you're in that place right now. You just happen upon something like this.
Yeah.
And you're listening or you're watching. Is there any words of encouragement you would give yourself if you had fallen upon something like this?
I think because my anxiety developed into having anxiety about having anxiety, my biggest thing that just got me through it was just realizing the only thing that matters is what God thinks of me. And I can't fulfill everyone else's expectations. And if something happens, God's still going to be there.
Yeah.
So just knowing that, no matter what, no matter if I try and I don't finish the activity that I want to do and I had to go home, God's not mad at me. God's not disappointed. Because that was
let him down.
I was a people pleaser.
Yes.
So it was like, God, I'm not going to let God down still.
Yeah. Yeah. And you felt like you were doing that every single time that you were walking away from something.
Every time I was trying but failed to overcome this.
Yeah.
It was
even
like
though he
a
never said
disappointment.
those things to
No.
you. But that's the feeling you have, that you've let him down, that you didn't follow through on it.
Yep.
And instead he loved you through the whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's used it to glorify him out of it all,
Yeah.
Like, I've come out of this and I was like, ugh, I don't always want to talk about it, Like, it gets hard to, like, revisit those places.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've gotten to the point where, like, God put me through this to let other people know that they're not alone. So you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And
I think you mentioned off the top, you said you're an extrovert, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally.
So when you think of this happening to somebody that's more of an introvert, where they may not be more willing to talk about it, right? That's hard, And so it's just so important, the encouragement to just keep leaning in, keep sharing it with people. And I get that, like, not all people will get it. You're going to share it with some people that you think are friends that maybe they don't have the empathy that's needed, and that's okay. Keep sharing it to people that you trust. Pray about it and share it often. I really feel like there is power in sharing struggles.
So much, because people feel comfortable being around people who, are open and just they can't fully understand what you're going through. Even if you have anxiety and I have anxiety, we're not the same person. We don't come from the same circumstances, but we can relate to one another.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it helps to just know that they've experienced something similar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for going there. Yeah. Thank you for talking about all this hard stuff. I know it's never really easy to go. I love how you said, like, kind of reliving those things, because when we talk about mental health, we talk about how much we can work ourselves up over things.
So
and calling ourselves to remember things, we kind of walk that fine line, right? And I'm just grateful that you were willing to do that. It takes bravery, I think, to do that. And I'm really proud of you for that. Thanks for sharing not only at the gathering, but right now, so much more.
I'll talk to anyone about it, anyone going through it. It's just, I knew how, good it felt to have somebody who's been through something similar and can just see things and feel things the way I felt them. Yeah. So if anyone wants to talk.
Reach out. We would love to get you guys connected. Absolutely. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
So grateful for you. Guys, just, like, share. Gosh, if you know somebody that this might really be helpful for, make sure that you share it. And it's an encouragement. It really, really is, to feel like you've been seen and heard by people you've never met before, but you get it. Like, they get it.
Yeah.
They're saying things that I felt before is a really encouraging thing in dark places. And so we're praying for you. We're encouraging you. Go and make it a great rest of your week. And we'll see you on Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.